Woof. What a game for the Illinois Fighting Illini to open up their season versus Toledo. Whew. Let me know in the comments, Illini Nation, how you're feeling about that one. But Illinois got the win 30-28 over the Toledo Rockets, the defending MAC champs. We're going to break down the win. We're going to discuss exactly what we think about the new look Illini with a different defensive coordinator. We have a different quarterback. We have different running backs. Like there's a lot of new pieces to this, how the defense looked, and exactly should we be worried about Illinois. So we're going to talk about the Illinois escaping with a win in Champaign over the Toledo Rockets. Like and subscribe to the YouTube channel. Follow it right on Apple and iTunes as well. Got to grow that. Leave a comment, obviously, down below. Even the haters, just I get some haters from time to time. So Illinois gets the win, 30-28. Still processing it. I'm really glad I slept on it. This is recorded the next day after the game, and I'm really glad I did because you had to think about. We're going to break everything down, but the overall thought is they're 1-0, and as Illinois fans, we have to accept that. We have to celebrate that the fact that they're 1-0. And the more I thought about it, we have to understand that we have new pieces to this Illinois team. We have a new defensive coordinator. Yes, he was on staff. He's worked with Brent Bielema before, played for him, I believe, and Aaron Henry. We have a different play caller. So he is going to we keep comparing things to last year. You heard the announcers do it. We did it. I did it. We kept comparing things to last year. They only gave up 99 yards a game on defense. They did all those things. On offense, they averaged 20 some points a game. Tommy DeVito, we wish we had him back. Chase Brown, Heisman Trophy candidate, or should have been. He did a lot of good things, and the defensive players we had, we have to understand that was last year. The great, late Mike Leach. You can go look up a YouTube video. He talks about when he was at Texas Tech. He said that was last year, right? That was last year. And that's what I have to keep telling myself when I was watching the game. I got very upset during the game because Illinois fans now, we have this high expectation, and we were ranked in the college football playoff last year. We were in a position, we were 7-1. We were in a position to say, oh, we're going to go to the Big Ten championship. And then we end up not going. We end up going 8-4 and then up going 8-5, losing the bowl game. But we have these high expectations because Coach Bielema has that aura. He talks about the high expectation. He's not here just to win games. He's here to compete to get to the Big Ten championship game. He's here to compete for that college football playoff, which is what we need. It was week 1. I think people underestimated, and I said this on the preview, how good Toledo actually is, how good the MAC actually is. If people actually watch MACtion, they actually watch those teams there. Look how big Ohio University's team is. Look how big Miami of Ohio's team is. I know a coach at Akron. They're trying to turn it around. Like, there is some really good football teams there, and Toledo was no exception. They won the MAC. They've won a lot of games over the past, I believe, 5 years. They're always competing for that. And if you win the MAC, you're doing pretty well. And this is a Division I program. This is not a 1AA program that came in here. This is a Division I, even though it's not a Power 5. This is still a Division I program that came in. So I think maybe even myself, I tried to on the preview to give the much respect to Toledo. It was just on principle. You would sit there and say Illinois should win this game. And so I think we have to accept that we were 1-0. Now, how we won the game is the whole other thing. And maybe fans thought, hey, we need to blow this team out 40-something to 17. But you saw previews. You saw the predictions. There was still close scores. People had like 28-21. People had 28-17, 26-17. Something weird. It was still a close one. So we're going to break that down. I want everybody to have that kind of thought process into this episode because I'm glad I slept on it. If I would have recorded right after the game was over, I would have had different thoughts because I was looking at it from I look at it from a fan perspective. I try to look at it from a coach perspective. We have to look at it from realistic eyes and views as to what how this happened. And so we're going to talk about that was my big monologue here. We're going to talk about the negative. We're going to talk about the positives. We're going to we're just going to talk about it all. We're going to talk about it all here. Um, so I thought that first drive for Illinois' offense was one of the best we've seen from Illinois. The passes, the play calling, the shifts, the motions. That's the type of offense we're going to get from Illinois, and we're going to do that and we're no huddle. We were a no huddle up tempo, which was crazy to see because Illinois tried that before in the past, especially with Lovie Smith, and it didn't work. And to see that from a Coach Bielema type offense was a little different. And so that first drive, we thought set the tone, and then we kind of fluttered. The big concern, if you want to call it a concern, was the trenches. I said that Illinois was going to have to control the trenches, offensive line, and defensive line. Offensive line pass protection wise, I thought, thinking back, was not that bad. I thought they did pretty well with the pass protection overall. I mean, there was times that, he got hit a little bit, but Altamar got hit a couple times, but offensive line cannot block everybody. I still thought their pass protection was fine. I thought that when it came to making sure that your quarterback is going to be able to stand up and pass the ball was fine. Where the concern comes in is we talked about how great the left side was. We talked about Olin Kreutz's son is the center. We have a big offensive line. They're going to be big and nasty. Toledo's defensive line came to play, and they have a good, actually, defensive line. I'm watching it. There was times Illinois just could not move them. I mean, we ended up having 163 yards rushing. Altmaier had 69 yards. Reggie Love had 58. McCray had 30. But some of the ones from Luke Altmaier were scrambles. Some of them were zone reads where he pulls the ball and runs because it depends if he's reading that defensive end or that linebacker. But I thought the run game sometimes was not there. And that was part of the thing on offense that was concerning was the trenches. We have the talent. The offensive line, when you look at it, they're big. I'm watching them move. They move pretty well. So just sometimes that offensive line was not moving people. There was that 4th and 1 or 3rd and 1, the deep fake or the deep mesh point with the quarterback running back to get the ball close to the line, which I love. I loved watching that part. Toledo's defensive line came to play, and they were not going to be pushed around. And again, that goes back to you have to respect your opponent, but fear nobody. And I think some of us on social media and the fans did not give the respect to Toledo that they deserved. And we have these high expectations of Illinois football now, which can be that's a slippery slope to start falling off to go down. But the offensive line, they played well. Like if you gave them an overall, they did what they were supposed to do. But there was just, I think we had this high expectation of them. And if it's different groups, offensive line is not just getting up there and pushing people. It's a cohesive unit that has to, work together. It's the first game. They have to figure out how to communicate with each other. They have to figure out, they're either going against somebody else's defense, how to block it. And they're going to work on the technique. They're going to work on some of that stuff to really get what Coach Bart Miller wants. I just think we were expecting this big dominant thing over them. Now, was it terrible? No, they ended up winning the game. They had to go down there and score at the end, and they did the things that they were supposed to do. Toledo had long drives. So we were just expecting a more dominant thing from the O-line, but overall, not bad. It's just not what we were thinking was going to happen. I think, though, if we're going to be positive here, Illinois has a quarterback. And the quarterback and the wide receivers, we're going to talk about them right now. Luke Altmaier had 211 yards passing, 2 touchdowns and 1 interception. He wants that 1 interception back. But my overall impression of Luke Altmaier was he was in control of the offense. Even when we stalled out on drives, he knew what he was looking at. He knew how to command everybody. And to be in a first year offense with this, he was fine and he looked good. His arm is amazing. The way he got rid of the ball, where he knew he wanted to go, and how elusive he is to move around in the pocket. And even though he took off a couple of times, he was always still looking downfield. And we have a quarterback. I thought, he played well. He played well, and it was one of the, Tommy DeVito did well, and I wish Tommy DeVito was still back. But we're not going to miss a beat with Luke Oltemeyer if he stays this poised, this confident, and man, he had some swagger to him too, and you love to see that. And flip on to the receivers, man. Pat Bryant 64 yards, Casey Washington 54 yards, Isaiah Williams 51 yards, Riemann 33 yards. There was some catches there that you don't expect them to have. We got the tight end involved early, which I wish we went back to later on in the game. The big throw at the end there to keep the game going, to get down and get the field goal. The receivers were running hard. They were getting off their jams. Like Pat Bryant, 6 receptions. Casey Washington, 4 receptions. Isaiah Williams, 5 receptions. 2 touchdowns for Pat Bryant. The longest pass, 33 yards for Casey Washington. That's just going to continue to grow as they get into a rhythm. And so to sit here and say that Illinois has some type of passing attack with the combination of Pat Bryant, Casey Washington, Isaiah Williams, and then you get tight ends involved, then you get Reggie Love out on swing passes or him out in a route, that's going to be great later on as you get into Big Ten play and start playing these bigger schools. Because last year, there was times where we just kept run still. There was times we got some passes to some receivers, but to have those receivers now show that they can catch, they can run routes hard. But Coach Steve, it's Toledo. No, respect Toledo. They were doing some really good things. That's what the wide receivers were supposed to do. And then to have a quarterback that could accurately put it only where they're going to get it, and they continue to get that rhythm as practice continues to move on, game planning, they start to feel more comfortable as the games start going. That's going to be big for Illinois later on down the road, because that's not something we've had. I said that coming into the season, we're going to look at these different spots. I was really looking at the receivers, because who's going to be the guy when it's 4th and 1 and we have to march down the field and score? Who are we going to get it to? Are we have the quarterback that's going to be able to accurately get it there? Are we going to have a guy that's going to go up and get it? And so I think Pat Bryant and Casey Washington were proving, hey, we're going to be those guys this year to go get that, because that's the type of pieces we were missing, especially when they get into the red zone. They have to be able to do those things. And so to that's the positive part of the offense. Looking at the running backs before we get to the defense, again, it went back to the run game, how we're blocking it, the push up front in the trenches. Part of the offense is kind of missing Chase Brown. Reggie Love had 12 carries. McCray had 11 carries. They combined for 88 yards combined. They're kind of missing Chase Brown. And so one of these guys is going to have to really step up and kind of poison themselves to be the guy, because they both bring different things to the table. Josh McCray had the rushing touchdown in the end zone because he's your bruiser. Reggie Love is the guy that's going to make you cut and miss. It's kind of similar to the Chicago Bears, where you had Khalil Herbert and Montgomery. Montgomery can kind of make people miss, but he's that bruiser. Herbert's going to be the guy that was going to make you miss. So they got to figure out the run game. The run game could have been better, but we're going to be positive here. If the run game's not going, in the past, we would have been like, oh, we're kind of in trouble, even with Tommy DeVito, who I was a big fan of. I think now, if the run game quite isn't there, we're going to have the quarterback and receivers and the play calling to still move the ball. And now they have to work, because they were just worried about the run last year. They knew, other teams later on knew, hey, if we can stop Chase Brown, we're good. If he's getting hot, we're in trouble. Now we're almost passing to open up the run this year. And I know Coach Bielema wants to run the ball, and they're still going to try. They're still going to have that identity about them. They're still going to be, as the season goes on. But to have the guys able to pass the ball in those situations and be able to do that, that's great for Illinois. That's going to be a fantastic equalizer there to be a balanced offense for them. So offensive line is going to get better. The left side of the line is still going to be good. You have a, first year starting sophomore, I believe he's a sophomore center, different guys playing. That's a cohesive thing. Once they start talking the same language, walking the same walk, they're big enough. They're athletic enough on some of the pin and pull stuff that they were doing there. They're going to be just fine. It was just Toledo really came to play, and then Illinois wasn't quite matching that at times, and then they did. And offensively, they marched down, they got the field goal, and that's what you're supposed to do, to do that. Defensively, and overall, I guess this goes with offense. You can't have 10 penalties and give up 100 yards, and that was the big thing that Coach Bielema talked about. And defensively, at the beginning of the game, I couldn't tell if Toledo's offensive line was just playing that well against our NFL draft caliber defensive line, or if Illinois was just trying to make sure to make this guy a passer. I said that if you make Finn a passer and that's how they beat you, that's how they beat you. You just can't let him run. Now, he passed pretty good. He was 20 of 36, 230 yards, 2 touchdowns and an interception. He only had 75 yards rushing on 20 carries because he broke the pocket at times. Sometimes he had those big runs. But I said that if you make him a passer, that's how they're going to have to beat you. And if they get hot, they get hot. And you're going to have to live and die by that. And they did. They made him a passer at times, so I couldn't tell if they were just trying to contain or not. But I'm going to give a lot of credit to that Toledo offensive line. They gave that guy a pocket a lot of times. They ended up run blocking pretty well as the game was going on. That part can be a little concerning if the defensive line just overlooked Toledo's offensive line, or was the Toledo offensive line really playing that well? I think Illinois also was just planning to say, hey, we have to contain. If we start making him rush and move, it's going to be bad, and we're just going to have to live and die by it. That's what I'm telling myself. Until later on in the game, you start to see more slants. You start, these blitzes. They're like, we have to get after this. We have to do something. We have to make him take a risk. And, that was the big thing. But in the beginning of the game, in the first 2 quarters, you were seeing it reminded me of when Coach Walters' first year. If you think back to the beginning when we had Coach Bielema and Coach Walters for the defense, we were calling a lot of man at the beginning of that year and that game, their very first game together, and it just didn't look like it was ready. The man defense wasn't look like it was ready to go. And so they were mixing in man and zone. And then as it got along, and especially last year, we were number 1 in the country calling man defense. That's kind of what it looked like this year because you have a different defensive coordinator who's going to have a different style, even though you're going to run what Coach Bielema wants, and they understand it because they work together. It's difference between being an assistant coach, not calling the plays, then getting to call the plays. You're going to have the same type of mindset for certain things, but you also have a different aura. You're going to have a different feel for the game. That's why Coach Walters never had a play sheet. He wants to go by feel. And it's his first time calling plays. And, we have to remember Coach Walters, when he came to Illinois, he was calling plays at Missouri. So he had that feel. Coach Aaron Henry, as far as my knowledge is, he hadn't been a Division I defense coordinator. So there's going to be some bumps there. There's going to be some, growing pains there for play calling. That's why Coach Bielema was there to help guide him and get him there. And so we have to remember that as well, that he's going to get a feel for it. And as it goes on, you're going to get better. But we were very aggressive. The corners and safeties are very aggressive. We saw that. They gave up some plays, guys in front of them. The man coverage stuff still looked good, but that's where the penalties were coming in. We were holding. We were doing this. Very aggressive. Then when we played zone, Toledo was able to pass the ball in the zone. So they're trying to figure out who they are, I think, where they want to play man. They want to do what they did last year, but that was last year. And again, we said this coming in. I don't think Illinois is going to have that, giving up only 99 yards a game defense. They're not going to have that right now. As the year goes on, they're going to get better. They're going to be able to work, like I said, just like the offensive line. They're going to work together. They're going to speak the same language, walk the same walk. I just don't think you're going to see number 1 in the country man defense call. They're going to mix it. They're going to disguise it. They're going to have to play some zone, and hopefully that they're going to jam guys off the line of scrimmage, and those guys in the zone are going to make plays. But I also think Scott's interception, that was the big turning point. That momentum, Toledo's up. That interception changed the game for Illinois. I know Toledo came down later on and scored. and they were up, and Illinois had to put this drive together. But that just gave the energy back to Illinois, and that's just kind of what this defense is going to be. It's going to be kind of like a bend don't break. Last year they didn't bend at all because we're only giving up 99 yards a game. This number one defense. This year we're going to almost have to be a bend don't break, and sometimes we broke, but then when that interception happened, we really didn't break. And again, they're just going to have to start mixing in this man and the zone. And as the year goes on, you're going to see more and more man as they get better at it. They're getting coached. But that's the defense we're going to see. More zone, I think, than man as it goes on. It goes back to when Coach Bielema first got there with Coach Walters. They really wanted to play man. You could see it when they were there as the games were going. Then as the year went on, you saw a little bit more zone because they were practicing the man. They were trying to get guys comfortable, working on their technique. That's what's going to happen this year. We're going to see some zone. They're going to mix that, practice that man coverage stuff in there. But ultimately, what hurt was the penalties. If it was, the 10 penalties for 100 yards, you cannot do that to anybody. You do that in the Big Ten, you're doing that to any Big Ten team, and you're going to be put in a position to not win the game. But you know what? We're going to be positive here. It's just Toledo. No, we're not going to do it's just Toledo. You got to respect everybody you play. It's a Division I opponent. Mac's a good football conference. An old Illinois team might have given up, or forced the issue, made more mistakes. A win's a win, and to show that they can battle, to show that mentally they're just going to ride it out. Nobody panicked. I think fans were more panicking than anything. Maybe Coach Bielema, I'm not saying he was panicking, but I'm sure he was like, "Whoa, this is not what I thought it was gonna look like." But you build off of the positives, and the positives are we have a quarterback, we have the receivers, the corners and safeties for Illinois, they're young and young playing experience wise. They're going to figure it out. They're very aggressive. Our NFL caliber defensive line, I think, will turn a switch and get it going, but then to show the poise to come down and hit the field goal, the poise to make the big play and the catch, and the poise to just never give up. Those are things that we can take away from this. And I'm glad that's why I slept on the game, thought about it, and came away with those positives. Now, you got to start figuring out quick, especially if you want to continue to win. But we are 1-0. They have a short turnaround to play Kansas, and that they're going to be fine. I think we're going to be fine. We don't need to overreact. There's still a lot of positives to take away. And again, I think the defense will start to figure itself out. And you have different coaches on staff too. They're going to start to figure it out. But you have the pieces in place. We have guys there, young and experienced, playing wise time there more than what we did last year. And so the pieces are there to do something with it. And that's just it's going to happen. And I think that we're still going to be in position to win some games. It's just, we cannot look ahead, and it's just going to be piece by piece, be mentally tough, get after some teams. And we're going to be okay. Illinois nation. It's going to be good. I still think it could be a fun year when they figure it out. And the mental toughness part for Illinois that we haven't seen, that's going to be the big thing as the year moves forward. Thank you guys for watching and or listening. Make sure you like and subscribe to YouTube channel, follow and rate on Apple and iTunes, at Coach_Steve72 on Twitter or X, whatever it's called, and on Instagram, Coach Steve72. Leave a comment section down below. Check out all the other videos. Check out all the affiliates, of course. Thank you guys again for watching and or listening. We will see you guys next time.